I guess it's kind of like a sarcastic thing, but sometimes people will say like the club of interest will take notes or something, and it's supposed to mean like that you like note it down.
The club of interest. That's wonderful. Welcome back to the Club of Interest, a speculative fiction podcast. Is it too late for a rebrand? You're listening to The Great and Secret Knowledge, a speculative fiction podcast. I'm Jeff, and with me, Sofia. Say hello.
Hello.
Or don't. It's fine if you've got something else going on.
Maybe I will only speak in sign language this episode.
Ooh, that'll be hard to edit. I'll have to use an AI to speak for you, and that's like against my whole thing. So, oh man,
yeah.
I'm in an existential pickle here. Ethical dilemma, just like the one we have in this episode of Star Trek: The Next Generation. Hide and Q. If you have the power, should you use it? Is it right to replace Sophia's words with a robot? We'll talk about it or sign about it now. What did you think of this episode?
I thought it was okay only. Like it wasn't bad. Like was it the last one we talked about that was bad?
The battle. Oh my God.
But it wasn't as good as some previous ones, I thought. It was like a little bit. I enjoyed some parts of it. What do you think of it?
I like the conceit. I like some of the moments. It's memorable. It's one that like sticks with me all throughout the series. The idea that one of our people could have become a Q and chose not to. It's a pretty big deal. But weirdly, this episode only gets 6.9 on IMDb, and the battle got 6.8.
Oh.
Imagining these two episodes as like equivalent is hard to fathom. Like, I feel like there's a jump in quality from one to the other. I would give the battle a 2.8. But,
what, like, I don't know what is the normal grade? Are they lower
question.
than normal, or are they higher? Or not higher, but like, are they normal points?
So let's look at another episode that Maurice Hurley, aka CJ Holland, wrote. So he wrote, let's see. Got to go down to the writer section. He wrote Data Lore, which is a beloved episode. Data Lore got 7.6, so a pretty significant increase. What else? The Neutral Zone, 7.4. That one is fantastic. These three old like Earth people get woken up after cryogenic suspension, and it's just silly because they're us, but like sucked into the future demolition man
that's
style.
fun.
So the next episode he wrote about Q is called Q Who. Got an 8.9. So clearly this guy has the goods, right? But this one might have been more in the direction why it was kind of subpar. I feel like the writing wasn't terrible.
No, I agree. But I also feel like I don't really like the actor who plays Riker. Like I think he's like
Mm.
the one of the weakest ones. Like I not really enjoyed. I'm trying to think if I enjoyed the scene where I felt like, oh, it was his scene and it was like very good. I don't feel like I've seen it.
Yeah, he made some interesting choices in this one. Like when he stands with his arms crossed and like straight up and looking sort of upon his crew as his subjects, like he's suddenly become a 18th century king or something. It was very odd.
Yeah. I wonder if maybe there's a problem. I think that when you talked about how the writing is good, and I agree that overall it's good, but maybe this story is too short to tell in one episode like this. Maybe that was part of also why I
Mm.
didn't like the actors acting, because he has to portray this change and it's very, very quick. Like maybe it would make more sense if he had this power for a month, or if it had been if he had to use it for a longer time and it had somehow changed him. Now I feel like it's so quick that it almost feel like, did Q somehow change his personality as well? It doesn't really feel like it was something that would come on that quickly.
Okay. So if I'm doing a rewrite, I might make the whole thing happen at the colony where people are suffering and dying. Because Q takes them to a random world we never get the name of, fighting
Mm.
soldiers who are vicious animal things, quote unquote.
Yeah, based on what?
So
Like I don't know.
so they have no character, right? Like it's basically it takes a regular episode and thrusts a bottle episode into the middle of it.
Mm.
So it that affects the pacing, but also the stakes. At some point the stakes are super high, like Yar will die if they make any more like failures, and then he's like, "Oh, fine, I'll switch it." It's almost like here's an episode that should be all about Riker, and they contractually stick the other players in.
Mm. Yeah, that could be actually. That's probably something that often happens, that you have to have some kind of parts where everyone just. But I feel like what you said, they could have had this mining colony that maybe it was some kind of, maybe Riker helped people there, with his power. And then you could see like throughout the episode that he would change. And then maybe, but it depends if they wanted to have this thing where he really chose not to use his power. That is interesting, I suppose. But it was a little bit weird since he used his power at first, and then Picard was like,
Mm-hmm.
"Oh, you cannot use this power again." And then it feels a little bit. Why not have him use it a little bit more and then maybe stop at some point?
Yeah. Now I'm just thinking of how to improve the episode, and we can't do that because it's 30 years old or whatever. Oh my God, it's 38 years old? Jesus. Oh my God. I was 10.
Mm.
Unbelievable.
Do you remember any of the episodes when you watched them first time? Like, do you remember like, oh, I remember this scene, when I saw this?
No. Well, no, I remember the pilot. I do remember the pilot, but that might just be because I've seen it 5 times or whatever.
Mm.
Yeah,
Yeah,
I
I
don't
just
have any like lasting memories of this show as a kid. I do of Star Trek, the original series, which played on reruns every day.
mm. No, but I mean, I don't just mean like if you remember what happened. I just mean more that you remember being like disappointed or something. But it sounds like you don't remember, or or being like really.
I was a kid. It was TV. We had cable for the first time. Like it all just washed over me like a blanket. I can't say that TV ever disappointed me, unless there was
Oh yeah.
literally nothing on that was any good. In which case, I had to go outside.
Yeah. I mean, it is interesting because I remember, or not I remember. What I was gonna say is that I was listening to this what is it called now? This movie podcast with Brett Goldstein. I don't remember actually what his podcast is called, but he always asks the guest like, "What is the first movie you remember seeing?" And I'm kind of like, "What? How could you possibly remember that? That doesn't make sense." Like, because for me, I don't remember. Like, I know that I saw a lot of movies many times at home on TV. And I don't remember when did I see one at the first time, and I don't have any specific memory from seeing it. So I don't know if the idea is to think about something you saw in the theater, but it's a little bit confusing, this question to me.
Yeah. Looking back, I'm thinking my first thought was Escape from Witch Mountain, which is just a bad Disney Channel movie from the 80s or 70s or something.
Yeah.
Return of the Jedi with the Ewoks. Star Trek 4 with the whales. Although I would have seen Wrath of Khan in the motion picture before that. But yeah, on TV there would be movies. Like I might have seen something black and white. Yeah. Oh, a Disney. It was probably a Disney movie, right? Like, what were some back then? Snow White, Cinderella, something like that. But yeah, how do you
Yeah.
know? Like, my first word
Yeah.
apparently was Chewbacca, having just seen Star Wars. So
That's funny.
I, you know, I I don't remember that, but that's what they say.
Yeah, because I suppose for me the idea to actively remember seeing a movie. Of course, I could say, oh, okay, I saw this movie at some point, but to remember really the experience, like I agree with you that you kind of watch it and you just like take it in, but you don't really have a memory of having watched it. You just remember the movie.
Yeah, I more remember looking at the sleeve at the video store than actually watching it, you know?
Yeah, I remember now. It's called Films to be Buried with.
That is a good name.
Yeah, it is pretty funny because the idea is that every guest have died and they have to decide like which movie they want to. There's some different movies they have to choose, and part of it they have to also explain how they died, and it's like very strange. Some of them pretty funny.
Well, of course, mine is The Princess Bride, and I fell off a cliff while listening to a podcast. Although, why am I hiking? I never go hiking. Maybe I just ran into a bus, or a bus ran into me, something like that.
I feel like buses gets too bad of a rap. It's always like in movies and such, people are always hit by buses and they never hit by cars.
Yeah, it's probably going to be like a slightly drunk guy in a pickup truck. Or somebody that had COVID and their brain is just Swiss cheese.
I like the specific thing of that. Like it was someone post-COVID driver hit me.
Well, let's get into this deeply rich episode. I was watching it the second time and I was like, I don't really need to go through all this.
And Troy is not in this one. Did you feel sad about this?
I felt it. Well, Troy would just solve this immediately. She'd telepathically communicate with her Imzadi Riker and be like, Will, you don't want this power. And he'd be like, you're right, Troy. And the episode would be over.
Yeah.
You know?
Maybe Troy is like the Xavier of X-Men, where they have to like put her away. Like, oh, she will solve it too well.
According to IMDb, she saw that she wasn't in this episode and she thought she was getting fired.
Oh.
Whoops.
It is kind of funny. I mean, there's so many other stories where you could easily have someone be left they just don't appear in the episode because maybe they are away or they are sick. But here it's like very noticeable. Like, we had to leave this person on another planet.
Apparently, they had to give some of her lines away to other people. I really want to know how that happened. If she thinks she was getting fired and they say unavailability, like, it can't be both, right?
Yeah, that is weird.
So we've got some ordinary space dialogue, methane-like gas, force fields. Oh, it's the Farpoint force field, and it's Q time. We get a weird snake sphere.
Yeah, I was also thinking about this. Like, it's like a crystal ball with 3 snakes coming out of it.
Oh my God.
I guess the snakes are like the symbol of knowledge. So maybe it's supposed to be like tempting them with knowledge.
Look at you getting interesting things out of this episode. Snakes representing knowledge. Did you catch Worf leaping over the center line there to get in front of the captain?
Yeah, I really like Worf in this one. He was very funny. He was just like so dramatic about all the things. And I think it was fitting, with Q, that he was like, I will not drink your drink. And it was just like pouring it out very.
That was pretty great. Yeah. Or when he goes flim flam.
Yeah. It's also funny.
So Q arrives in a silly admiral's uniform. Picard's like, hey, people are suffering and dying. We got to go. And he goes, your species is always suffering and dying.
Yeah, that was also funny. It is fun to have this kind of alien that is very alien-like.
Yeah. Oh, man. Riker, even before Q gives him the power, he's doing that like arms crossed looking imperious thing. It's almost like Jonathan Frakes hadn't decided when he'll start being Q-like or whatever. Or maybe canonically Q saw Riker acting that way and was like, I like the cut of this guy's jib. He could be one of us.
Yeah, I could see that. And I also wonder, though, what do you think his end game was? Because I felt like he was presenting this as maybe there was some kind of test, but maybe it wasn't. Maybe he just wanted to get one of them to become a Q.
The fact that we can't answer that effectively, I think, is a downside of this episode.
Yeah, that's
because like he claims it's for testing us, but then he really just wanted a friend,
Yeah. I agree at some point, and I think that's part of what I didn't like about this episode. But I also think it really is the feature of this character, because I feel like part of it is that he doesn't really make a lot of sense, and it's like almost too alien, and they can't really communicate, and he can't really, like, the way that he interacts with them, he tries to use culture that they recognize, but it's not really working, and it doesn't really get it right. So I think that's part of it, is that we don't really know exactly what he wanted, and maybe it was a little bit of both or something. But then for us, it doesn't become as interesting, because then we don't really understand what, he could do anything. He's like, physically, he can do anything. So then it doesn't become interesting to try to fight him or outsmart him in any way. But then also we don't totally get his motivation. So to try to reason with him is also kind of difficult.
Yeah, I would file this as a season 1 problem, that they haven't quite nailed down what Q's deal is. And so it kind of butts up against a regular episode of space people doing space things. Worf tries to jump in the way, and Picard goes, "You'll make no move against him unless I order it."
Pity. You might have learned an interesting lesson. Macro head with a micro brain.
So then Picard gives us a recap of the pilot episode in case we missed it.
Yeah, that's probably, I didn't think about that, but that's probably smart, yeah, to, if people have not seen the pilot, they can get caught up.
Yeah. Q is like, seized my vessel. It's just clowning on Picard. He says, "Does no one here understand your incredible good fortune?" Somebody says games, and he's like, "Let's have a game. Yay."
We don't have time for these games.
Games? Did someone say games? And perchance for interest's sake, a deadly game?
He sucks everyone off but Picard onto a green sky planet with 2 moons.
Yeah, I was surprised by this, that they get separated. Do you think it's because they say at some point that like Picard was tested last time or something, so maybe he wanted to leave him because he thought that he had already tested him.
Yeah, Picard's no fun. He's like, "I'm going to take this guy out of the equation. He can be boring back on his ship. Well, maybe Riker will give me a good time."
Yeah. I wonder, it could be funny if each time they just leave another person. So the next time it's like they leave Riker and Picard and they pick a third one. Which would be the third person? Like is there a third in command? What happens if both of these are gone or something?
I think it would be the person most likely to be tempted next. So who would be more likely to want ultimate power? It's not Data. Maybe Yar? It's not Worf. Geordi proves basically in this that he's fine with his life. Bev's a doctor, so maybe.
Yeah.
And Wesley's a kid, so maybe. But I don't think we get a QV Crusher episode. That might actually be interesting.
Yeah.
She could bring her husband back from the dead. She'd be like a godlike doctor. Back on the bridge, Cap's all alone. No comms. Consoles don't work. Turbo lifts won't open. Back on the planet, Q has a command tent. He's wearing a Napoleonic Marshal's uniform. And he calls Riker over to talk about the rules of this game. He gives him some ice-cold lemonade. Riker's like, "I was just thinking about an ice-cold homemade lemonade," or something like that. It's like, were you? What?
Yeah, I also said that was fun.
An old-fashioned lemonade. Q's like, "All right, so let's give your friends drinks too." And Data starts to drink his and then stops. And Worf, you mentioned this earlier, pours his out.
I wonder what each of their drinks were. It would have been funny to learn about. Like, they could have had funny drinks.
Geordi's was green. Could be a Romulan ale, or what's a green drink from our society?
I'm just thinking about the one that is making people crazy. What is that one? I don't remember what it's called.
Absinthe.
Yeah.
Oh, Geordi loves absinthe.
It's just like giving a whole glass of absinthe. Oh, do Data drink and eat food, or did he get like motor oil or something?
I believe Data can eat and drink, but then he'd have to extrude it through his fingers or something. Yar, God, what does Yar have? Trying to see the color here. Jordy takes a big old swig. It looks like Worf had Kool-Aid. Just some fucking cherry Kool-Aid. He's like, nah, fuck this.
Oh, it would have been. I mean, I assumed he had some kind of Klingon drink, but wouldn't have to be. It could have been a human drink that he has tried and thought was really good.
Yeah. Later on, we find out he likes prune juice. The regular Klingon drink is blood wine, which is darker than whatever he had in his glass.
Mm.
So he's like, drink not with thine enemy. The rigid Klingon code explains something of why you defeated them. And I don't understand his point.
No.
Number one, it's just wrong. They fought to a stalemate and made peace, right? Neither one beat the other.
I don't know this actually, but that's good to know.
That's just a season 1 problem. In Star Trek 6, The Undiscovered Country, they come together and they make peace. So we didn't actually beat them.
So, but maybe the idea is that he says that the Klingons are too rigid, and that's not good to fight war with.
Maybe if you don't sit down and drink with your enemy, you can't backstab them.
Yeah. I think it was
I'm not
more
sure.
like kind of to have a Klingon, rigid Klingon code, that he thought you should be more flexible and like.
Oh, okay. That
But
makes
yeah,
sense.
it doesn't make sense. That's like, oh, you wouldn't drink with your enemy. Okay, then you will lose.
Oh, it's also literally false. In Star Trek 6, they sit down and drink with one another.
Oh, really? Is that when
So,
they
yeah.
make the peace?
Yeah, in that movie at some point.
But maybe it's okay if they are doing peace talk. Maybe they can drink then.
Oh, okay. Gotcha.
You would have to find some Klingon lawyer to ask, and he would be like, if it is this kind of situation, then it's okay. And like, if maybe it's like with, in Islam, like if you're sick, you can also drink or something.
Like you can drink alcohol in certain circumstances.
No, I just mean, I was thinking about actually when they have the fasting, like then you are allowed to actually break the fast if you're sick.
Oh,
so maybe
right.
it's like if he was dying, you could drink with this guy.
Gotcha. So he says something about humans change over time. And I was like, and how is that different to any other species in the show?
Yeah.
Season 1 problem, I guess.
Yeah, I was also thinking about that. I know it is always interesting, and it's part of why I find fascinating to watch this is the idea how you view humanity and what is humanity like and what is significant. And this one feels a little bit, yeah, it's like difficult to say how is it different from other species. Why wouldn't other species try to change? It seems like it would be a normal evolutionary trait.
Yeah, I think in season 1, they're trying to play up how unique humans are. Like on one level, I get that we're humans, so we want to be able to relate to them. But really, what they come to later is that this is a humanoid thing, right? Q's an energy being. We're humanoids, so that the difference is more about all the species, not just humans.
Yeah, I could see that. And like if he is so different, then it would really be very different from others. Maybe it's just that humans are at the very moment caught his interest.
Yeah, absolutely. So he's talking about like, how should we do this this game? Riker says, what would we win? Q says, the greatest possible future that you could imagine, which of course requires something totally disastrous if you're to lose. Worf says this game will be unfair.
No, doesn't he say? He says like, if the game is fair, we won't lose. And then Q is like, oh, this game should be
Right.
completely unfair. And that was funny.
Oh, for shame, Worf. Fairness is such a human concept. Think imaginatively. This game shall in fact be completely unfair.
That was pretty good.
Yeah, that's what is fun with this kind of alien mind, that you can just have them make no sense, but in just a whimsical way.
So Q sends Yar to the penalty box for complaining. He says if anyone else gets sent, she will go off to nothingness. So we have our first official stakes at minute 12:30.
Yeah, and it was funny that she was sent. I thought that she would be gone the rest of the episode because she was sent away, and I thought, oh, there are no women left in this show now. They're all sent away.
No. Don't worry, we'll have a scene in which she gets to represent the best of womanhood, which is crying and hitting on her captain.
That was very strange.
Oh, God. So she arrives on the bridge. Captain's just sort of wandering around. She's a complete wreck. She explains her situation. She says one more penalty by anyone and she'll die. So apparently he, I don't know, telepathically told her that in between scenes. She starts to lose it, and the captain goes up to comfort her.
Yeah, it was very weird. I thought that he was being weird as well. I was like, wait, why are you this intimate? This seems strange. And then she was just like, oh, if you weren't my captain.
Yeah, he's being fatherly, it seems, although because of TV constraints, they're awfully close to each other. He says there's a new ship standing order on the bridge. When one is in the penalty box, tears are permitted. And, yeah. Oh, if you weren't a captain. Consorting with lower rank females, Captain. Oh, Jesus. So, and then Q lets her off the hook. So there go our stakes. They lasted officially 2 minutes. Picard eyeballs Q's uniform and says he looks ridiculous. And finally, we learn what the point of this episode is. Q is testing Riker to see if he'll play the game and win. Q and Picard make a deal. Q says Riker will be offered something he can't refuse. If Riker refuses it, Q can no longer mess with humanity and has to go away.
Which then is the end of this episode. So I assume Q will not be back.
Will never bother us again.
Yeah, that was it.
Meanwhile, he will show up on pretty much every series except Deep Space Nine.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, no. Yeah. Well, anyway, he's in a few more series. Voyager, Lower Decks, Picard.
So to try to understand like his reasoning now, before his test to Riker was then just to see if Riker will use his power that he gave him.
Yeah, if I give a human absolute power, will he use it or will he reject it?
But then he's saying that he wants him to come and be a Q person. But maybe that was also just a test.
Well, I think he hung out with Riker a while and saw that he could do the God thing pretty well. He's got the vibe.
Yeah, that could be. So it's first he tests him to see if he will use it, and then he's like, okay, and then he made the deal with Picard that he would, or the bet, I guess, that he that Riker would accept this if he was offered it. So it's like two different tests, or not, it's like a test
Right.
and then it's like a bet. So it's two separate things.
Yeah, and at the end of the day, we find out he just wanted a friend, I guess. He just wanted a bro. Who doesn't want to be friends with Riker? He's cool. So we go back to the planet. Geordi's watching Worf. Apparently, he's so far away that even Data can't see him. So again, we're in this weird stage where they built Data to be like incredibly powerful, but they didn't give him zoom lenses. Geordi says Worf must be a stealthy runner. Or no, I wrote, well, Worf must be a stealthy runner because he runs all that way and nobody can hear him. These French troops with monster faces are snarling around. And Worf does a little recon and then heads back.
Yeah. And like you said, they state, or maybe he states this at the later point, but they say that, oh, these have, they're just basing this on them, not the noises that they make. Like they don't look that different from like the Klingons. What? How do they know
because they
animals?
grunted a little bit? They're vicious animal things. Yeah, very weird.
Maybe that is like a very specific thing, you know, that any animal that grunts, they know, okay, this is not intelligent. They have like so many different species they can tell. They can tell directly from the noises that they make.
Yeah. I guess the director didn't show us enough what the writing is trying to tell us, right? Like if they'd been just sort of, I don't know, pushing each other or like just pretending to be human, like, they just didn't sell it very well.
Yeah. No, because they have clothes, they use these weapons, so it's not like they're just totally uncoordinated.
Yeah. They're not hitting each other with the rifle butts and like sniffing each other's asses.
No. Or I was thinking, what if they were just animals and they had their weapons strapped to them as like just like bound, and they didn't really hold it. Then maybe I could buy it. And they just like ran around and they're shooting randomly.
One guy hands another guy a turkey leg and he shoots it. They just don't know what to do.
Yeah. Or they could be like this pig that Worf got that was his pet before.
Oh,
they
the
could have
targ.
the targ. They could have all
Yeah.
these targs running, and then they could have the gun strapped to their backs.
I want targs with freaking laser beams attached to their heads.
Yeah. So I think it's pretty fun that Q tries to make some kind of historical setting. I mean, it is a little bit interesting that he mixes these things, I think.
Yeah. I don't think they had the budget to really pull it off, but
Nah, but then you
they
could
tried.
you could just explain it by like this Q is being weird and it doesn't really able to make, like, maybe he wanted to have, they were so few, so he needed to have few soldiers, he couldn't just have a whole army trying to descend
Yeah, a
at them.
line of artillery and horses and all that stuff.
Yeah, so I like this idea that he's like, we'll throw in these soldiers, but they have a totally different, they're animals and it's totally wrong planet and everything is incorrect.
So we cut back to the captain's ready room. Picard's in his chair, and they have a discussion of humanity through the words of William Shakespeare.
Everything is very, like, I don't know. This is also something that is fun with the way that they try to project the future of humanity, is that it all feels very close to our time. That it's like it's so much of the culture has to be the culture that we know, and so it feels like nothing happened in between except this atomic age that apparently they didn't produce
Right.
any culture at this time.
Yeah. Oh, that's interesting. Every once in a while, they'll rattle off a list of human achievements, and they'll do like a really old thing, a semi-old thing, a current thing, and then they'll drop in like, when Blorgelblatz from Nargleflom, the great poet or whatever. Yeah. Yeah, it's hard to sell future culture because the future is an undiscovered country.
Yeah. And it's tricky because I've seen it done in different ways, and sometimes they do this kind of story where it feels similar, where they talk about like, okay, first we had the time that we as readers or watchers know, and then the history that we are seeing in this future, it starts right from this time. Well, I think that it would make sense that there were more times between, that they were like, okay, we had other cultures and then we have this culture, but sometimes they try to just make it, the same, and it becomes a little bit strange because it's like, I guess then you have to kind of see it as, okay, these people are Americans or British or European. I don't know. It's like it becomes a little bit maybe too close to our cultures when they are so connected to the culture that we know.
Yeah, and I will also say that it's hard to be relevant to the culture in which the episode is being written because of copyright laws, right? They're not going to be able to quote Toni Morrison or, I don't know, somebody who's actually relevant at the time.
Yeah.
Because their words are copyrighted. So they fall back on Shakespeare, who is a white guy from the 16th century. It's hard to be completely up to date and current.
Yeah, it is. And it would be maybe, in some ways, that's worse, I think. If you just take something that we feel is popular right now, then it can feel very dated almost at the time that it happens. For example, isn't there like, I don't know what the different Star Treks are called, but there is one of the recent ones, they had Elon Musk name dropped. I was like, even at the time when I watched it, I was like, you can't name drop that. That is too recent. That is not going to work. And now it's dated.
Okay, it's Star Trek Discovery, season 1. The only way we're able to accept it canonically is that the guy turns out to be a bad guy who said that line.
Yeah.
However, everyone on the ship should have immediately clocked that he was a bad guy because he was giving props to Elon Musk.
Yeah.
It's so embarrassing. Yeah, no, and I'm not even talking about like current speech or whatever. I'm mostly thinking about like stuff that we can all pretty much agree is like will last the test of time. Like when this episode came out, Maya Angelou, for example, I Know Why the Cage Bird Sings. It's a classic, won all kinds of awards, right? That would be something we could use to talk about human culture, but we can't because, it's copyrighted. Or like, I guess they could do Dr. King or, maybe some public speeches, but yeah, they fall back on Shakespeare a lot. And also probably because Picard is so good at quoting it. Picard, I mean Patrick Stewart.
And I think that it makes sense to have, at least Shakespeare is something that is very widely known. So maybe it makes more sense that if you would have something that is like solely maybe a very specific like American culture or something, maybe it makes more sense that it's Shakespeare. But I think that the way that you should do it is to have like a really mix of different things, because then at least it would feel like there's a little bit more of a like, oh, this is something from Earth, that's like Earth is one country or something.
Yeah, I mean that's that's what Shakespeare did, right? He would drop in references and jokes inspired by stories from the full range of human experience, right? Copyright laws, such as they were, didn't really exist. So like in any given scene, something will be said that will appeal to somebody watching, kind of like The Simpsons, I guess, which gets away with that because it's satire.
Yeah, that can be
But
tricky.
this show has more constraints.
Yeah, but you could say things, right? Because I feel like in books, they always have like, they will have people, they will describe things where they say, oh, this character is acting like this fictional character or something. Like it will be mentioned, but I feel like you couldn't really just have the visuals. But yeah, I don't know. But
something about TV and movies, like it crosses a line into copying rather than referencing. I'm not sure why.
Yeah, I could see that. Maybe it's, but you could, I feel like you could quote stuff, you know, but maybe you couldn't just sing a song or something and be like, oh, this is just singing this song. Do you have any like movies or TV that you think does it better with in terms of how they deal with being far in the future, but still having something that feels relevant for us?
Well, I think it's mostly comedy, right? Because comedy can sort of goof on stuff that's happening in other movies and TV shows and songs, especially. Like quoting songs, like, because what I'm thinking of in this scene, he's talking about what's the point of humans? Are they all just base, you know, complaining apes? And Picard is like, well, no, think about this quote from Hamlet. And yeah, so Picard says, I see. So how we respond to a game tells you more about us than our real life. This tale told by an idiot. Interesting, Q. And then he goes on and says, while Hamlet was being ironic, this is what I think of humans. How noble in reason, how infinite in faculty, in form, in moving, how express and admirable, in action, how like an angel, in apprehension, how like a god. And Q just leaps to his feet. Surely you don't see your species like that, do you?
He gets so mad about it. Why is he like so upset?
He is disgusted.
Yeah.
Because he thinks of us as like little worms. Just flawed and gross and shitty.
But I think Picard still picks up. He's like, why are you here then? You know, if you don't really care or don't think it's noteworthy.
Yeah, he says one day we'll be like that.
It was interesting, this kind of like vision, because I feel like today we have more knowledge about psychology, and I feel like we are less positive. Like I feel like humanity is more limited than maybe they did back then.
Okay, the example I always think about there, it's from Westworld season 3 or maybe the end of 2, where essentially the robots find out that human beings' psychology can basically be filtered down to a very short length of code, just our most basic instincts and drives and a few memories, and they can basically copy us. That's when they start imitating humans in the real world. They can basically just copy us super easily because we're so easy to replicate or whatever. I don't know if we've proven that for real in our modern society yet. AI still seem pretty dumb, but it's an interesting idea that like we're not actually as special as we think we are. We're not that deep.
No, maybe not. I think that the thing that sets humans apart from animals is really how social we are, because we are able to cooperate in such large numbers compared to most animals. And like to learn from each other. You know, I think that a lone human would not necessarily be much smarter than any animal. But since we can copy each other and learn from what others have experienced, then we can be smarter as aggregate.
Okay, so maybe this episode is really smart because that's exactly how Picard wins. Is he uses Riker's care for his colleagues as human beings to realize that putting himself above them isn't a good idea, that we all care about each other and cooperation and stuff.
That's true. And he uses kind of he uses the colleagues to prove against him, or I don't know, to somehow refute his argument, without them actually doing it openly. So it's like almost like he learns from their experience or their judgment.
Yeah. All right. The more we talk about it, the more I think, yeah, the director is just kind of didn't quite give it what it deserved. So we're back down on the planet. The soldiers, the vicious animal things, are coming towards the crew. Worf tells them they've got muskets. That's nothing compared to a phaser. So Riker tests, or Geordi says they just have muskets. Riker tests the phaser, and then Worf shows up out of nowhere and yells, "Drop your weapons!" And Geordi praises him for coming out of nowhere. So Worf apparently can stealthily run so well that Geordi never sees him coming with his fancy visor. It's pretty amazing.
Yeah, or did he run somehow behind the rocks and stuff so he didn't see him?
Well, I think that's part of it.
Can he see through
from
the
cover
rocks?
to cover. He may be able to pick up heat differentials, but I don't know if he can literally see through a rock.
Yeah, I mean, it would be, with our technology, I don't think it would be possible. But I wasn't sure if they were like, I have quantum X-ray. It's like...
I think if he had that, he'd use it a lot more often.
Yeah, because they had to, I remember now, they had to take him to a window so that he could look at this other thing in the previous episode. So I assume he can see through the walls.
Yeah. So this is when Worf says they're vicious animal things, and I'm like, ooh, a bit racist. Q replaces Data.
Yeah, that was funny. I like this makeup.
Yeah. Guy sat in the makeup chair for hours for this like 10-second bit.
Yeah, that is.
It's amazing.
Yeah.
Think fast, Commander Riker, and move fast. And the muskets are shooting particle beams. Riker then uses his power to dissolve a couple of them and throws up a shield.
Yeah.
Oh, no, wait. This is where he shoots them with his phaser. Phaser's a couple.
Oh,
and then
yeah,
Q gives Riker the power and says, send them back to the ship.
Oh, yeah, because Riker is left on his own. Yeah, that makes sense.
So Riker uses his power, and he's got this really odd Q-like look to him, where he's just sort of vaguely looks over their way and holds up his hand, and light flashes. The team goes back to the bridge, and then Riker looks at his hand like, wow, I did it.
Is this the time? I'm getting confused about the timing of them, because they have also later when they're attacked again, right? They're put back on the planet.
Oh, yeah, they go back to the fucking planet. Oh, why do you think they made them vicious animal things and not just people?
I guess the only thing I can think about is that Q sends them back to whatever void he created them from. So maybe he's not able to create real intelligent beings.
But didn't he make all those people from the atomic horror in his first episode?
I guess so. So he could have made some kind of fake people like them. But I guess I felt like even though these people in the atomic horror they acted, they were almost more like some kind of puppets. Like they didn't really they didn't really take any action or something. So I could see something like that. Or it could just be that he wanted to have some kind of more dehumanized people for them to fight for some reason.
Yeah, I was thinking maybe it was just so we didn't have to think about them at all. We could just come in and out of that scene, shoot them if we need to, and not feel bad.
Yeah, I think that's probably it. But it's a good point, like you said, with the atomic age, they had all these people in this court. But I think the difference there was they didn't fight these people and, destroy them.
Okay, so Yar's having a bum out on the ship. Picard walks in, and all the systems are back on. She says to the captain, apparently the ship was always moving. We never stopped. So Picard says, cue suspended time. Everybody shows up. Some more talk of animal things. Let's see. I've got a soundbite here.
We were under attack by these animal things.
Animal things.
Well, maybe Data could explain it better, sir.
And Data goes, you may find it aesthetically displeasing. And I'm just like, what? Maybe the writer thought they would come up with some wildly disgusting creature. But the fact that Data would give a shit about aesthetics is pretty silly.
Yeah. But I could see maybe he's a little bit confused what people find displeasing or not. So maybe he made problem before where he described things and they're like, you're not supposed to describe that. And it's like, oh, I'm sorry.
Picard says this has something to do with Q testing Riker. But now it's time to continue with the rescue mission.
But I'm confused now. When are they stabbed by these bayonets?
Ooh, when are we stabbed? Let's see.
I feel like that must have been before.
No, it's a couple minutes later when they all get sent back to the planet,
Oh,
and
okay.
Geordi goes, "Come on, not again."
Yeah, that's what but I was confused about. Okay, I went a little bit too fast. I thought that we were going to the planet at this point.
We jump back to the planet, and Riker is fake laughing, and it's not good.
Oh yeah, because he is at the planet. Yeah, but why did you talk about the rescue mission? Then they were not. They were gonna go without Riker?
Yes, they were going to go without Riker.
Okay, I missed that they were gonna continue on. Okay, that's weird.
Yeah, it almost feels like a scene is missing here. Like Riker's laughing, and he says it's you that he's laughing at to Q. And which I guess he says the joke is you. Strange gratitude from one who has been granted a gift beyond any human dream. So yeah, they have a little chat about what it means to be a Q, and Q basically admits that someday humans will evolve to a level where they could threaten the Q or surpass the Q in some way. He doesn't get into the specifics, but he wants to know why humans feel compelled to grow.
So yeah. Sorry.
Oh, go ahead.
Now I was just wondering, how much do you think this is some temptation for Riker, and how much is the actual explanation?
Are you suggesting that Q would be lying to Riker?
Yeah, I thought maybe so. Because I thought that he was kind of like, humans are capable of so much, and then Riker will feel like he is righteous in accepting this power, that he will be able to use it without,
That's
abusing it.
interesting.
Yeah.
I don't know if Q ever really does lie. I mean, he doesn't really need to, right? He's godlike, but maybe.
I feel like sometimes he says things that doesn't make that much sense. So maybe that's kind of like lying. If he says like, "Oh, you are guilty of this," and they say, "No, we're not," then is he lying, or is he just having a wrong idea, assumption, or is he willingly saying something wrong?
I think in this case, because he wants Riker to be one of them, he is being upfront and honest. I think he's telling us that we will one day surpass our limits.
Maybe.
And
I don't know.
He's trying to appeal to Riker's vanity, I think. The idea that Riker could be the first one to achieve this.
That one I agree with. I think that is the case. Like he's trying to say something that Riker will like. But I wasn't sure, because if we look at it, how it's going in the timeline, it's like he starts by saying that he's gonna test them, and then he makes this bet with Picard, and then he bets that Riker will accept this gift. So then when I'm seeing him with Riker now, I'm thinking, okay, he wants to make Picard lose this bet. And that's what I'm thinking is his
so it's more about his own ego than actually getting Riker to be his buddy.
Yeah, I thought so. Because he's corrupted now by the bet thing, that he wants to win that. So I can't really trust his motives, that he has any specific motive beyond that. But then, like you said, in the end, he seems like he was maybe had some actual interest in this. So it's a little bit double, but I can be okay with that, because it's, like I said, it's like this alien being, so we don't really understand maybe the motivation fully.
Yeah, Riker says, but to become a part of you, I don't even like you. So yeah, I think it's a little tricky, because Q wants to be liked as well as win.
Yeah, I could see that. Maybe it's a little bit of both.
So now he beams everybody back to the planet, including Picard and Wesley.
Yeah.
Come on, not again.
The goons are menacing them nearby. None of them have any weapons. Picard points at Riker, who seems irritated. I'm not sure why Picard's pointing at him.
Yeah, it felt kind of accusatory, like, "Oh, what did you do?" But he didn't do anything.
Maybe he doesn't even know if it's Q in disguise, and so he's just like kind of big dogging him to see what Riker will do.
Yeah.
So Worf just madly rushes into this mob of guys who he knows now their weapons are energy weapons. It's just a classic Worf over the top. He starts whooping their asses, and then he gets stabbed to death.
Yeah, it's very bloody.
Oh, yeah. Yeah. We could have been doing this the whole episode.
That too. But it was interesting, because we have not really seen any kind of gore at all in the episodes that we've seen before. And I thought, what if like a child watches this, they would be scared.
Well, apparently a child will rush in to diagnose their friend and then get stabbed in the back.
Yeah, that was very violent, for this show. It felt very extreme.
Yeah, kids would freak out, I bet.
Yeah.
For vicious animal things, it's a little strange that one of them is drumming.
I didn't think about that, but that's true. And I mean, I think it maybe was a good idea to go into this melee thing, because if you're close by, you cannot really use the energy weapons without risking hitting your own people. But unfortunately, they
Oh,
also
yeah.
had the bayonets, so that didn't really work. But maybe Worf didn't realize this.
I mean, I think the Klingon thing is never surrender, never retreat. You know, he could get in there, knock a guy out, take his gun, and then waste everybody with it.
Oh yeah, that's
but
true.
Unfortunately, he gets taken down.
Yeah.
Apparently, according to the Prime Goofs here, when Worf runs to attack the creature, one of them swings the butt of the musket at him, clearly missing him, but still knocks him down.
Oh.
I'm going to rewind it and watch this. Worf rushes in. Gets a guy with his elbow, throws another guy. Oh! I don't know. He was pretty close. That's just normal stuntman bullshit. Not much of a goof. Let's see. Wesley gets stabbed. Riker says, "No! Damn it to hell!" He wishes them away. Picard says, "You did that." And Riker goes, "And that's not all," and does a little whoosh. And they all go back to the bridge. And Riker has this super Q-like pose where he's like half turned to the camera. He's got his arms crossed. He looks down his nose at Picard.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's pretty cheesy. That grid, the wounds, only the Q can do that. And Riker doesn't even say, "Well, it's not the Q, but he gave me that power." He just looks down at him. Later, Picard says, "Are you strong enough not to use that power?" And Riker promises not to.
Yeah, but he used it when he was on the planet. So when I was watching at first, I thought maybe that the test would be to see if you're given this power, will you use it? And then if you used it, then it would have failed the test somehow.
I think Picard's justification for this decision is that human beings aren't ready to have this much power. But it's not like all of human beings would get it. It's just Riker, right?
Yeah. But maybe
he
means
feels like Riker
no
would.
human. Yeah, he's ready.
No human. Is the fear that Riker would just start healing people and uplifting societies and like stuff that the Federation isn't allowed to do?
Yeah, I think so.
Because he's supposedly one of us? Okay.
Yeah. But maybe they just feel like they don't want any of their people to be like Q. Because he's not moral either. It's not like they are, "Oh, look at Q is so responsible with his power," you know? But maybe they just don't feel like they would want a human to act the way he does.
Yeah. Interesting. It's like, yeah, one Q is bad enough. We don't need a Q in a Starfleet uniform.
Yeah. Riker Q. That could also be a funny if they made another TV series of some kind, then just one person is a human and then they become this kind of godly being and then they just return in different times and it's annoying and people are like, we used to like it and now he's like a Q that goes and
Riker. Not again.
Yeah.
So they beam down to the planet. They have a couple of med staff with them. They arrive at the site. Now, there were like 500 people here, but now there's like 10.
Yeah.
So pretty bad. They are late to the party. There's a pile of rubble. Data starts yanking the rocks off. And I just want to say, in real life, if somebody's trapped under rubble, you got to do a little pre-planning, staging, research before you just start yanking rocks off, because if you pull out a load-bearing rock, a larger pile of rocks could kill them. You know, you got to be a little more careful.
Yeah, that's a good point.
Maybe Data has tricorder eyes and and knows exactly which rocks to remove.
Oh yeah, I would love it if we could get some from inside Data's vision, and then they would show all these
Yeah.
different angles and stuff, like, oh, these load-bearing rocks, like this equation.
Yeah, like Terminator. When we see in the Terminator, it's like kind of reddish, and there's words and stuff on the screen.
Yeah, that could be fun. That you could do a lot with that kind of stuff. You could have like different words for different people, like when you look at different people.
So Beverly says it's too late. She's dead. And I just want to play the music here because it's really lovely. Ooh. So Crusher's like, certainly you can't bring her back to life. And he's like, yeah, I could, but I promise not to. Back on the bridge, this extra walks by with this cool blue prop. I don't know if you noticed this.
No, I didn't notice this.
It's just some sort of data pad, but I don't know why. It just got me. I'm like, I want this prop.
That's fun. They get to have a cool prop.
Yeah, I'm taking a screenshot for the website. It's the dumbest thing. I don't know why I like it so much.
Maybe you could have it as the title image.
Yeah. So, let's see. Riker says he should never have made that agreement. And then he just blows off the captain and leaves the bridge without even saying request for to leave the bridge or anything.
Mm.
So that's a pretty good cliffhanger. We go to the commercial, and when we come back, Riker has returned to the bridge. And at one point, he calls the captain Jean-Luc. Nobody does that except Beverly. That is very strange. Wesley and the doctor show up. And I thought, did Picard invite them up? Because Riker at first is like, what are you guys doing here? And he says, well, fine, leave the boy. So yeah, we learn Picard set up this situation to sort of test Riker.
Yeah.
He says, I haven't changed. He expects them all to respond. And Picard says, perhaps they're all remembering that old saying, power corrupts.
Yeah.
He says, do you believe I haven't thought of that, Jean-Luc?
Have you noticed how you and I are now on a first name basis?
I feel like I said, that this should have been longer than it could have been.
This particular scene?
Yeah, just the way that they show him changing. Because I think that, him leaving Picard while Picard was talking, then that I could kind of buy, because it could be connected to, him being very upset about not being allowed to save this child, and that he's like doing something rude on purpose. But I think the other one maybe should be more, a little bit more drawn out, or, it needed to have...
Instead of all happening on the bridge in one tight scene, maybe he could be visiting each crew member on his own to sort of see what he could do for them, maybe?
Yeah, they could be. Or they would have to have some kind of... that he somehow got this power at the start of the episode, and then he had it throughout. And even though he didn't use it, the power that he knew that he could use it made him, corrupt.
Huh.
So it feels a little bit rushed for me, because I don't think that someone would change. We know from research that people that do get power actually do change. They become less empathetic when they have power, because it's like, we are less concerned. But I think that part of that is also the experience. You have to really... It's about how other people view you also. It's not just about, oh, I know I have this power. It's like, do people defer to you? Do they allow you to overstep? And that is part of it. It's like the how other people view if you have power, if you know what I mean.
Yes, it's not only are you alienating yourself to others by having power and not using it to help them, you're also being alienated by them because they can't relate to you. Something you did upset them. Like, you know, I think of like famous Hollywood actors who maybe started out as like good union people, you know, like salt of the earth. And at a certain point, they're just completely out of touch with reality to where they're singing John Lennon's Imagine during COVID, you know, with their rich friends in a stupid video.
No need for greed and hunger. Brotherhood of man.
Like just
That's very specific.
yeah.
Yeah,
But,
so
and with politicians, you know, you might have a very like progressive politician like Bernie Sanders who at a certain point just gives up and starts doing the same trickery to prop up the party in hopes that they'll get something out of it, and then they don't, and it's just yeah.
yeah. I mean, I think that what I'm thinking here is that the way that power corrupts, it's not just knowing that you have the power. It's not just like, oh, I have the power, I'm aware of it. It's really
Right.
about the social dynamics and how that changes. And I feel like we would have to see a little bit more of them interacting, and maybe people would like defer to Riker or, you know, act differently, and that would make him change. I don't think that he would just change knowing that he had his power.
Yeah, like conversations start to stop as they walk into the room.
Yeah,
Like,
yeah.
people start sucking up to him.
Yeah, I think so. Yeah.
Now, he already has a lot of power on the ship, so it wouldn't be as stark a difference.
Yeah, that's true. It could be a little bit tricky, but it could be something like, you know, that maybe Picard gives an order or something, and they could like, the others could like look at Riker and it would be like, do you agree? You know, I don't know
I
how
like
you would do
that.
it specifically,
Oh, that's
but
good.
so, or it could just be like a Riker Picard thing where they are interacting, and maybe like, I don't know, it would be tricky, you know, because it would have to be like Picard would somehow have to acknowledge that that Riker has this power. And I don't really feel like he would. He would just be like, I'm still the captain. I don't care.
Yeah, no. Picard deferring to somebody would be pretty amazing. I don't know if we've ever seen that. So he says that they think very highly of us, meaning the Q. We have a quality of growth that they admire. Picard says, Q has muddled your mind. And that's when Q returns dressed as a monk to nudge Riker into joining the Q. He says, let us pray for understanding and for compassion.
Let us do no such damn thing.
Picard's like, why the costumes? Do you have no identity of your own? And then Picard smiles. This moment, as mediocre as this episode is, like that moment when Picard smiles and says, he's nothing but a flim-flam man. I'm like, oh, that's the moment. Picard's smile could be a good picture as well from this one.
Is that
In
when
addition to
Worf
that
is
weird
also...
pad.
You could have two different pictures next to each other. So is this when we talked about how Worf is just like flim flam?
Yes.
That's funny.
Oh, flim flam. Q says, hey, Riker, give your crew things that they'll like. And he clowns on Picard. May I please give happiness to my friends, sir? So Riker guesses what they'd all like. Bev says Wesley should leave. And Riker's like, no, let me give him what he wants. And he makes Wesley a man. There's a weird moment where Geordi's like, damn, Wes, you looking good. It's like, ugh, I don't know about that.
Yeah, maybe it's a weird reaction to have to someone just aging like really rapidly.
He's like, not bad. Ugh, ugh. What's going on there?
But I think that it is kind of, it would be weird to not comment in any way, because it is like, for us as an audience, it's interesting. Like, oh, what would this person look as an adult or something? So
Right.
it is kind of a weird situation where you have to kind of react somehow.
Yeah. Maybe I'd be like, Wesley, is that you? Are you from the future?
Yeah, I agree. Less enthusiastic would probably be.
Because, like, not bad suggests that he put in a lot of time at the gym or something, you know? Like, it's just a weird reaction.
Yeah, that's true. It's like kind of like, good job. It's like, I didn't do anything.
I did literally nothing, sir.
Yeah.
He goes to Data like, hey, I could make you human. And Data's like, even before he says it, Data's like, no, sir.
Mm.
He goes, isn't that what you've always wanted, to become human?
Yes, sir. That is true. But I never wanted to compound one illusion with another. It might be real to Q. Perhaps even you, sir. But it would never be so to me.
Yeah, I liked it. It was it's interesting idea, like what is real and not, and then that he would feel like it would just be an illusion.
Yeah. And then he quotes Polonius from Hamlet, this above all to thine own self be true. Which is funny that quote is cited often, but in context of the play, it's a pompous father giving kind of pointless advice to his son that's sort of like generic bourgeois attitudes. But stripped of its context, yeah, it's pretty profound.
Yeah, sometimes it can be like that when you want to use this quote and then you're like, okay, this doesn't really describe what I thought, but I like the sound of it.
Yeah, I mean, Shakespeare has written so many great words that it's almost like the Bible. Like, we can use quotes from the Bible to justify
just pick anything.
pretty much anything.
But and it could be the opposite as well, that you read something really interesting in a book and then you want to quote it and then you're like, it doesn't work, without the context. It just sounds like nothing.
Yeah, that's a good point. Well, that's why we're here, to give context to everything.
Yes. We should just have a podcast that is only us quoting the episode. That could be funny. It's just like give this like 20 quotes and it's like summarizes the episode.
Totally. Riker gives Geordi back his sight, and I love LeVar Burton's smiling face as he looks around at the screen and the planet, and then he looks over at his friends. And he just looks so happy to finally see them the way others would.
Yeah, I was going to say, because you can see them and it's just different. But yeah, I could see that it could be interesting. But I think that this is like also a thing that TV always does, that whenever someone has like a disability, it's always like, oh, their biggest wish is to have not this disability. And in reality, you kind of get used to stuff, you don't really think about like every day, like, oh, I wish I could see, like maybe he has some other wish that is much stronger.
Right. I mean, like, if you could wave a magic wand and make me not bipolar, autistic, and not have ADHD, like, that would be fun for a day, right? To get to see how other people's brains work. But it's not my greatest wish, those things are part of me. Like, it's my greatest wish is to be 7 feet tall and be in the NBA, like it's not. Yeah, but that was kind of where mainstream culture was in the 90s.
Yeah.
Like, one day things will be great when disability doesn't exist, when it's like, well, no, there will always be disability.
Yeah, and I think we could also excuse it by being like, this is Riker giving his right. He doesn't read their mind, right? He's like thinks this is the thing that they want most of all. So it could just be him being like, oh, he wants to see, right? And then maybe Jordy's like, no, I want to, like, maybe it's the same for him, like, I want to be taller. And that's my biggest wish.
Yeah, it's funny too, because Geordi doesn't say, like, I like my life the way it is. He says, I don't like who I'd have to thank.
Mm.
You know, that fits the conceit of this episode, but I'm not sure it quite gets at the heart of things.
Yeah. But what I mean with that is that we are not explicitly told that this really is his greatest wish. You know, it could be like he's like,
Right.
oh, I like
Yeah.
it, you know, but doesn't have to mean that it's like the only thing he wants. But yeah, I like that they have some different explanations, you know, like that Data is doesn't want it because it doesn't feel real to him, and Geordi doesn't want it because he doesn't want to owe Q, or maybe like he doesn't want Riker to feel like he did the right thing.
Interesting. It's like the collision of a normal story, like what, I don't know, not normal, like a mainstream non-sci-fi story meeting a sci-fi conceit and like warring.
Yeah.
Geordi rejects the gift. Oh, I don't like that he goes, you're as beautiful as I imagined, and more. Apparently Tasha's not hot through the visor. Okay. Powerful stuff there.
Yeah.
Geordi says, nope, undo it.
Yeah. Was he born blind? I don't remember if this was explained.
Ooh. I think he was.
So
I think
he could
was
not
born blind.
really, I don't know. I guess Riker also gave him the ability to process images, or maybe since he had a visor, he could. Because the problem is if someone is born blind and then later on they get their vision, they can never really see properly because their brain didn't wire themselves to be able to process the images.
They're not able to learn at all?
No, not really. Like, not in the way that we use sight. Like, they cannot really use it in the same way, like to you know, navigate through the world. I'm sure they could like see somehow to you know, experience images, but so I was just thinking about like, how would he even, you know, would he even be able to connect this, like, oh, this is this person, or you know, but since he saw in the visor, maybe he has some kind of vision processing so that he could use.
And it's Q power, so it can kind of backfill all the nervous system changes.
And it could be, maybe it's like kind of like he has seen in black and white and now he sees color. That could be.
I think that's the suggestion.
Yeah.
Next, he gives Worf a bangin' babe in fishnets.
So is this then not a real... We talked about bringing, you know, could he make real persons? And we forgot about this one. Like, so this is not actually then a conscious person? Or is it like, did they make a person and they kill them? Or...
You've just broken the episode for me, because all I was thinking about is Worf said no to this hot, hot lady. But yes, Riker invented a human being, or I mean a person, a sentient being, and then deleted them from existence, and nobody talks about it.
Or it's like she was not sentient. She was just like a sex bot for Worf.
Also an ugly implication.
Yeah.
Surely all Worf wants in life is a hot fucking babe who wants to jump his bones and doesn't talk. Yikes. Let's hope Riker isn't telepathic.
Oh, yeah. Maybe he took her from somewhere, you know, she was transported there. So she is still alive. She was brought back.
When we come into contact with this kind of misogynoir, you know, the othering and foreignization that's happening here, it all happens so fast and lasts for such a short amount of time that the implications are just not touched on at all. Like, she appears, she has no name, no voice. Worf clearly is attracted to her physically, but there's nothing else going on. And then she sees Yar, the only other woman in the scene, and reacts negatively. And that's pretty much her whole job in this scene.
Yeah, it's very weird.
And it gives Worf a chance to hit a woman, which, you know, of course we all want to see that, right? Black man hitting a woman, surely. The caption, interestingly enough, as she works her way back up to her feet, Seductive Growl.
So this growl is fine. You know, the other growl that was animalistic, but this one is like clearly has intent behind it.
Seductive Growl. If we had show titles, that might be one. Yeah. So this certainly does not pass the Bechdel test. In addition, we also see a gratuitous shot of her ass. And could also be a great show picture.
You just have to get like 4 different pictures as a little square in each corner.
Oh, that's a great idea. I just want to apologize to everyone on behalf of 1987. Jesus Christ. And 2 things happen in short succession that are just, I don't know if they're intentionally racist, but between 2 black characters, they feel racist. He goes, "She is from a world now alien to me." And Geordi goes, "Worf, is this what sex looks like to you? Or is this your idea of sex?" And I'm just like, ugh. The writers, did they know how bad this would look 30 years in the future? I mean,
But
God damn.
But do you mean the way that those quotes follow each other, or like?
Right. Essentially, separated from the whole Klingon context, this is 3 black characters talking about culture from a different place, right? And it being bad and gross and having no ability to be integrated into human society. It's just, I don't know. The implications are icky.
Yeah.
And for the rest of the series, Worf tries to integrate his Klingonness into his life. So it's weird season 1 shit as well.
I didn't read it like that. I thought it was more like, but yeah, I don't have enough context to really understand it. But I thought it was more kind of like the same as, you know, him refusing the drink before. It wasn't like that he didn't want to drink. It was just like the context. And maybe here was the same, that, or not the same, but the way that I saw it was like, no, I have left my planet. And it's not because he didn't like the culture, but just that there was some kind of code maybe that now I don't know how to explain it, but I didn't see it as like a culture thing, that he was like, okay, I'm not gonna do these things. I thought maybe there were other Klingons that were also out, that had also left the planet, I suppose. So he could be with them and that would be fine.
Interesting. I mean, canonically, he was rescued from some sort of attack and raised by humans on Earth.
Uh-huh.
I don't know how old he and his brother were when that happened. But so he's clearly chosen a Federation Starfleet life. And so, yeah, I guess you could say that the ability to hook up and beat on any woman you want is a Klingon thing.
Okay,
And so
I see
he's
what you
gotten
mean.
rid of that.
Yeah, I mean, I see what you mean. Like that, it seems like weird that he's like kind of like going against his own culture or something, and that probably makes more sense than my interpretation because he doesn't know which planet this female is from. She could be from, from another. I mean, in my assumption, I thought that maybe there were other Klingons like living in different places.
And there may very well be, like, we just don't know, right? This is the first time we're seeing a non-Worf Klingon on the series.
Yeah.
Like, have Klingons regressed? Like, they don't talk anymore? That's the thing. I think if they made it now, she would be like, what are you doing on this bridge with all these Pataks? You should come live with me back on Kronos and we can fight great battles. You know, it would be more about, like, come back to us and be one of us rather than objectify me and beat me.
Yeah.
You know,
I agree.
Maybe drink later. Yeah, it's
yeah, it was strange. I think you're right. If they had more of an interaction, and that could be maybe something like, what is he longing for more deep down? That maybe Riker would think that he wanted to be with his own kind or something, and then he was like, because yeah, you're right. It's like weird. Like, what are you dreaming about? Oh, I want to have sex. That seems very.
Yeah, I mean, like, I would be embarrassed. Instead of just hitting her, like, I would be like, whoa, 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 whoa. This is not my greatest desire. I just want everyone here to know I have other things I'm interested in.
I want that to be the story because he was before he was like priding himself. He was like, oh, I am a warrior, I don't need this. So it could have been funny if he was like, what? Like, I don't want this. I'm on duty now. You want?
And then Q could have said, methinks the lady doth protest too much.
Oh, yeah. Also, why
Shakespeare in there?
Why does, like, if this is the whole thing, I guess that's not about humans, but Worf maybe should not be part of the test because he was like, because it's not about Klingons, it's about the humans and their ability. So I don't know, maybe that's not what it is about, because it's more about like Riker, if he can be trusted with his power and he can understand now that the things that he thought they wanted was not really, he wasn't really right about it. It wasn't as simple as he thought.
Okay, so it's more of like a heavy-handed Riker doesn't really know Worf thing.
Yeah.
It sure is a wild swing if that's all it is. My God. But I like the idea that Riker is telepathic and he just pulled out their deepest, most basest interest, like Wesley wanting to be big and Riker, sort of their like base subconscious desires.
Yeah.
Like, yeah, I would also like to hook up with a super hot babe. But like, it's not really relevant to what we're doing here.
I wish that had been his response. Like, this is not relevant.
Like, excuse me, ma'am. Maybe we could do this later. Riker, what the fuck? You think that's what I want? Jesus.
Yeah. But I think that you're right, that it probably should be connected somehow to him reading their mind or him like getting some kind of sense of what they want, because otherwise it becomes much more about him and not so much about the limits maybe of this power. But it depends, because if the idea is like to try to see if the whole thing is maybe a test of humanity somehow, then it wouldn't make sense to test all of them. Then it would be make more sense to test the humans.
Okay, and Picard's idea is we're testing Riker's ability to know what's right for humanity and for his crew. And clearly Riker, for all this new power, doesn't have the insight and the discrimination and the farsight to know what's really right for people.
Mm.
And this is what the writer came up with, ways to sort of goof on that.
Yeah, I think so.
Wesley says he's not ready to be a man. I just want to get there on my own. Honest.
Yeah, it took him a little longer, you know. Do you think he would have done it if the others hadn't refused?
I want an episode where he's just Big West the whole time, and then he realizes everyone else is refusing, and he's like, oh, actually, Commander, I don't really want to be a man anymore.
Yeah, I think it would be like the Big movie, maybe. It's like
Yeah, it'd just be big, basically. Yeah, big in space.
Big in space. I don't like this.
So Picard's like, or no, Riker says, how did you know, sir? I feel like such an idiot. And Picard says, quite right. So you should. And he goes to Q, pay up, dipshit. And he says, I'm sure the other Q know that you agreed never to trouble our species again. The other Q suck Q away. There's a cool disappearing effect. And Wesley turns back into a boy. The hot lady disappears. And Data says...
Maybe to die.
I'm sorry, what did you say?
The hot lady, she maybe died. It's so cute.
Oh, no. Nobody even considers it.
Extraordinary.
Data asks how the Q can be so gifted but not understand humans. And Picard says space and time are much simpler than the human equation.
I like that it kind of changes a little bit how we view Q in this episode, because at the start he seems like a little bit more mastermindy, and in the end he seems quite petty. So I like this idea that it's like maybe you could have all this command of time and space, but then not really be that much more advanced in when it all comes down to it.
Yeah. Okay, so there is a 9 point episode in here, in a 6.9 construction. Like the idea that the moment where Riker realizes that he doesn't have the wisdom to use the power properly, and that being what's going on with Q, there's a lot to be said there. But because they just kind of like fumble it at the end, it doesn't really hit as well. God, this is one of those movies that cries out for a repeat.
Yeah. You mean that Riker, if an Q, but he was aware that he would be a Q and he chose not to.
Well, just that it could be similar to what's here. It's just it didn't quite hit, like something about, I think it's like turning Wes into a man and all that stuff. It just doesn't quite,
like it distracted.
I don't know.
Yeah.
I think the hot Klingon lady was the shark jumping moment.
Mm. He should have gotten his pig instead, the pig pet.
Oh my God. Yeah, instead of just trying to have sex with him, she's there with like a targ. Maybe she's got a son, like they have a whole life together.
Oh, yeah.
Because really that is Worf's driving force, is to have his Klingon self and his human self integrated and have a full cultural life. That's where he gets to over the course of 1,000 episodes, whatever he's in. But yeah, in season 1, they clearly did not know him that well. Yep. Maybe space and time are much simpler than the human equation. Well, that's Hide and Q. Why do you think I decided we should watch this one?
I thought it was worth watching. You know, there was some stuff that I didn't like, but it didn't feel, I don't know how to exactly describe it, but it felt like we did learn more about several different things, you know, so it's hard to maybe compare them to all the other ones, but yeah, I can't say exactly how it's gonna be important, but I felt like it somehow added to the overall story. I felt like
my original idea was that we got to see Riker with power and how he would behave, and that's something that we'll see his ambition sort of develop over time. But the thing with Worf, I think, is I didn't even think about it, but that is going to be a very steep decline, change, whatever, like from this weird thing to where he ends up. It's a very long journey. And also Wesley growing. We get to see Wesley grow into a man. He never actually ends up looking like that guy, but yeah, that's a big part of it.
That's always the problem when you do like different aging and stuff, and sometimes people are like, you know, if you have, for example, one actor playing a younger version of another actor, people would be like, we know what the old actor looked like when he was young. Like, he did not look like this. He looked the same, you know, a lot of the times.
Well, like River Phoenix playing young Harrison Ford in Indiana Jones and Last Crusade.
Yeah, and I mean, sometimes...
What are some other...
I was actually thinking about Westworld is one of them, you know, when it's like you have this thing where you are pretending that one... Like, you are misleading the audience so that they don't know that one character is the same, but at different ages.
Oh,
and then people are like...
Ed Harris and the guy from It's Always Sunny.
Yeah. And then people are like, Ed Harris, he looks like if he was the young Ed Harris, he would be the Ed Harris in The Abyss, which I have not seen, but apparently look kind of similar. So then it becomes almost like a fake, you know.
Yeah, no. I'm looking at young Ed Harris, a little quirky looking, but definitely hotter than Jimmy Simpson.
Is that the complaint? Like, they're not the same level hotness. No, but just like they often look similar to themselves, you know. So when you have like a totally different actor, and it's supposed to be like, oh, you cannot see that this is a younger, like...
Oh, the other way. Okay.
Yeah,
I gotcha.
It should be, you know, it doesn't really make sense that you would have this mystery where in reality you can see if someone is like the same person, but older or younger.
Yeah. Westworld's a bit of a weird example because nobody's ever like, wait, you're so-and-so, such and such, you know, like... Which would surely happen at some scene or another, but we, the viewer, never got to see it.
Yeah, I guess it's a little bit strange. I'm going to have to call out.
Yes. So next time, I'm not sure what episode we'll be watching, but hopefully it'll be an improvement on this one. Recommendations. Do you have anything?
I can't think of anything, no.
I don't think I have anything new either. I tried listening to Doctor Who Redacted, but it wasn't really for me. The new season of Quantum Leap of Doctor Who is incredible. It's one of the best overall seasons I've ever seen. There's only one episode to go, so they might fumble it completely, but so far it is absolutely top tier. Go watch it, everyone. It's on Disney Plus. That'll do it for me. You can reach us at greatandsecretknowledge@gmail.com and follow me on all the socials at El Jefe Tacoma. If you want to reach Sofia, you can hit us up on the email. And listen to my other shows, Shattered Worlds RPG, Everything is Awesome podcast with Jeff and Question Mark, and our stream, Omniversal Escapades, every other Sunday at 6:30 Pacific Standard Time. That'll do it. Anything else before we go?
No, that's all.
Okay, I think the quote will be, when one is in the penalty box, tears are permitted.
Maybe I'll do it in Swedish. När man är straffboxen så är tårar tillåtna.
A huge thanks to James Lark of jameslark.co.uk for providing our wonderful theme song. Thank you, James.